What up? What up? Welcome to today's episode of the TRG Agency podcast. I have a new friend, which is super exciting to welcome into the community, Marlie Karr, Director of Influencer Marketing at Circle. Marlie, thank you so much for hopping on today. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm excited to be here.
I'd love to start with your role. We're going to get a little bit into your career and how you got here, but for people listening that are not as familiar, what is Circle Media and what is your role there?
Sure. So, Circle Media is a social media management agency specializing in CPG and beverage brands, specifically in the better for you space. And my role is the director of influencer marketing. So, I'm the head of our influencer department. I oversee all influencer work at the agency, including strategy and execution. And I started Circle 6 years ago, and we'll talk a little bit about my trajectory too. But yeah, I mean, I clearly love Circle and can't say enough great things about the company, and I'm excited to chat more about it.
Yeah, it's something that is always brought up on these conversations of being at a company now for 6 years feels like 600 years,
Yes.
where especially our generation loves to bounce around every 6 months for a new job. So, with that, we were talking right before we hopped on and looking at your LinkedIn. You've been at Circle, as you mentioned, for 6 years. You started, I see it, I have it written down here, as a junior social media manager, and now you're the director of influencer marketing, as you mentioned. What went into that growth? Did you know when you started? At what point did you realize at Circle this is a company I want to be at for a long time? And what did you learn as you went through that process for the past 6 years, seeing Circle grow and yourself grow, with the company?
Yeah, so I said this to you offline before, but when I started Circle, I was a 20th employee, and now we're close to 90 employees. So we've definitely grown a lot, and the company has changed so much since I started. But I would say the one thing that hasn't changed is really the company culture and the personnel. And the leadership team really prides themselves on giving their employees autonomy and room to grow and kind of pave your own way. And a lot of the people that I started with at Circle also started in the social media manager space and now are at the director level of different departments. So I started with who's now the director of paid social, the director of email marketing, the director of the social media manager. So it's been really cool to see everyone kind of come up and grow over the past 5, 6 years at Circle. And we've really all helped kind of shape Circle into what it is today.
What did you sort of learn through being at every level of the company?
Yeah, I mean, I think really the main thing is kind of like you get what you put into it. I think there's a lot of people, especially people like in the Gen Z generation who started a job and think that, doing just exactly what's asked of them is what the role is. And I really believed in going above and beyond and doing things that were not asked of me. And I think putting in that extra effort and always going the extra mile and willing to volunteer when somebody asked for something or, raising my hand to take on new projects that were maybe a little bit outside of my job description too, I think is what really helped me grow. And I think that that's very much the same ethos of a lot of people that have grown at Circle too. And I think especially in a remote first environment, you kind of have to go the extra mile in order to stand out because there's not people, walking by your desk every day seeing the hard work that you're putting in necessarily. So it's very much output driven and, showing up and being an employee that is reliable and people know is going to get the job done and is going to do it, 110%, I think is really what it takes to grow at a company in a remote first environment.
Well, and you mentioned being the employee number 20 at Circle. What did the influencer division look like when you started there?
Yeah, so there really wasn't an influencer department as there is today. There was an influencer specialist, but the role was very different. It was very much a support role for the social media managers and helping them on the influencer work that they were doing for their clients. But we weren't offering influencer projects and retainers to our non social media management clients at that time. So I would say that is really, where I came in and saw that opportunity to have the influencer department be a standalone offering, as we were already offering content as a standalone offering. And that is what I was able to build alongside Adam, our president, and Sarah, our vice president, who are my managers and mentors, and really helped me shape the department into what it is today.
That's awesome. So an area, something that really stood out to me was that you had interned at a couple of really prestigious brand direct companies in Marvel, Atlanta Records, and Stia. There's a lot of people that are on the brand agency side that have never worked at a brand directly in-house and don't have that level of experience. What do you think you learned interning at those companies so that when you went agency side, you were able to have that additional perspective?
Yeah, honestly, I can't say that so much of those experience really like shaped my knowledge and expertise when it comes to social and influencer, since a lot of those roles, while they were like social and influencer adjacent, they were more just like general marketing focused were the teams that I sat on. But I really think those experiences shaped me more as just like an employee, and really showed me, what it takes to be a good employee, what it means to show up for your job every day. I had some really great mentors at those jobs that were just super professional, super engaged in their roles, really like poured their heart and soul into their jobs. And I think that that was really what I learned the most from those experiences, rather than like tactical things on the social side. The way that Circle Media is structured is we really view ourselves as like an extension of the brand teams, and more so like an outsourced employee versus an outsourced agency. And I've gotten a front row seat into so much on the brand side from all the clients that I've worked with, and being able to sit in on their marketing meetings and their brand meetings and planning meetings, and seeing, what goes on behind the scenes on those teams. And I feel like I've learned more about what it's like to work at a brand from this experience than I have from my internship experiences.
Well, and it's always so interesting to me because whenever we talk about what people find and where the areas where they're able to find success in the creator economy, it comes back to very basic principles. And you mentioned some of those, like learning how to be a good employee at all of those internships, responding to emails, following directions, not being an unpleasant person to work with. And so it feels like for people, once they get to the agency side, it's you learn all the tips and tricks of what it's like to work at these companies. But it's also just, hey, can you respond and be a pleasant person and do your job well and show up 110%? And that can do a lot of work when trying to build your career. So you had touched on it a little bit earlier, but I'd love to unpack it more in terms of building the influencer team at Circle from the ground up. You mentioned you've been there a long time now. You guys have grown. What, for you, in your role as director, was your part in the building? You mentioned Adam and Sarah as mentors and managers, people. So I know it's more so a collaborative effort, but what can you talk about in terms of when you guys got together and said, we need to grow this division? What did some of those physical steps look like?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, there was an influencer specialist when I started at Circle. That person had quit Circle and moved on to a different role. And at the time, I kind of threw my hat in the ring to take over that job instead of them hiring externally, while still keeping my social media manager clients that I was working on. So I basically gave them a like kind of risk-free trial into me taking on this role, where they didn't have to hire someone new and they didn't have to replace me at my old role yet. And I was willing to kind of do both jobs at once to show that I had the capability to take on this new role and build this department. And we basically started pitching the work to a handful of clients. A lot of times we would offer services for free or at a really steep discount, just to get the experience under our belt and then be able to create case studies and have examples to show to other clients. So that's really how we started. And honestly, a lot of it was just faking it until we made it. And that's really what it was in the early days. We would just take things on and kind of learn as we went. And then over time, I was able to really learn like what worked, what didn't work, what clients liked, processes we needed to implement, and then build a general framework from there that we can use to run campaigns with other clients. And I think one thing that really helped set me up for success is that I never wanted it to feel copy and pasted across different clients. I think that sometimes when you work with an agency, they just have one structure and they kind of rinse and repeat across all their clients. I wanted to give clients the ability to have custom campaigns and offerings and strategies based on what they were looking to accomplish and what their specific needs were. And then we really were just scrappy to get it done. And we started with just me and one other direct report, and now I have four direct reports, a team of five, and I'm so proud of where we've come from where we started, and it's like a totally different team, and we're so much more experienced and well polished than we were when we started. But I think that scrappiness is really what helped us get here.
We're gonna do at the end of this, before we jump to rapid fire, a question where we get to talk about all the incredible work you and your team are doing. But it did come to mind as you're going through that and talking about scrappiness and sort of faking it until you make it. Do you have a story? Because I feel like all of us do when we're on the agency side of running a campaign, where you want to do the best job because it's business and we all want to find success, but we don't have the experience yet. Is there a story that comes to mind that you look back on and are like, I cannot believe we did that, we pulled it together, and now having all the experience you have with a team of 5 years later, you're like, I would have done that totally differently with all the reps I've gotten?
Yeah, I mean, I would say probably my first full year in that role was a lot of that. And my really only true influencer marketing experience was what I was doing for my social media management
Mhm.
clients. So I had one client, Real Food from the Ground Up or From the Ground Up Snacks, and they wanted to do like a nationwide influencer campaign. They were doing like a sampling tour across the country, and they were going to different cities, and they wanted influencers in each city to capture content from the sampling events and then also just generally promote the brand. And I think we were doing like 10 influencers per city, and maybe it was 10 cities, so call it 100 creators. And at that point I had only really worked with like three creators per month for each of
Mhm.
my clients, which is what our like standard social media influencer offering is. And I was like, yeah, I can manage 10 plus creators a month. I mean, some months it was 30 because like the tour stops would overlap. And I was definitely in over my head. But, you know, again, it was very much that like I'll learn as I go. And I feel like I really can credit a lot of my growth at Circle from just having the mindset of like I'll figure it out as I go. And I really learned so much just by being in it, versus I don't know that I would have gotten to this place had I had someone above me that I was working for like entirely in terms of the influencer department. Like it really was on my shoulders to do the work, please the clients, get more clients, and I feel like I just had to kind of throw myself into it. And yeah, I think that's how we ended up here today, is really just by learning as I went.
It's something that part of the reason I wanted to have you on the pod is we're right around the same age. And while you've been at Circle a long time, it's not your company, but it does seem to have a bit of an entrepreneurial path for you in terms of
Yes,
building up this division. And something that I always really respect and admire about professionals is the willingness to take risk. And doing a campaign with 100 creators when the most you've done is three, there's an element of risk that you could fall flat on your face. And you don't
totally.
have a 100-person team behind you to where if something goes wrong, you can hide behind processes and say, well, it's not my fault. And I find that is such an admirable quality. And as they always say, experience is the best teacher. And you
Totally.
can now go to your, individuals that report to you. And when they come to you and say, Marley, I have this big problem, you've gotten enough reps to where you can, if not have a one-to-one solution for their problems, tell them a story of, look, I did this. This is my experience. This is how I got out of it. And without those experiences, you just may not be able to relate to them in the same way. So,
Absolutely.
I,
Yeah. I mean, look, I'm not going to say that I know everything. I
yeah.
definitely don't. But I feel like at this point, I'm confident enough that I can figure out pretty much any situation. And I've seen so many different things over different years. So, yes, I absolutely can pull from certain experiences that I have to help my team with any challenges that they're dealing with.
Yeah, and to be honest, part of how I view this business, and you and I, whenever we have emailed in the past, seem to be pretty on the same page in this sense. It's a relationship business, and you want to treat people the right way. And there are just things that are going to happen at different points in a campaign. There might be rocky moments, there might be obstacles from talent, there might be obstacles from brands. There are just a variety of factors that can impact a campaign. But you have those stories, and at the end of the day, those stories and the relationships you build throughout those campaigns are really what last far longer than any one individual project.
Absolutely. I mean, even on the client side too, like look, we have had clients that come and go, but there have been talent managers that I've worked with longer than I've worked with some of our clients. So those relationships are equally as important as our client relationships are.
100%. So that was actually a perfect segue into the next piece I wanted to sort of touch on here is I think there's a big, I wouldn't say misconception, but brand agencies work with a lot of brands. And you mentioned it there, you guys may have brands that are longtime partners, but brand agencies by design are always looking to identify and develop new business. So we're not going to put a number on it, but we're just going to say you've worked on a lot of different campaigns with a lot of different brands. Can you speak to some of the specifics about what you see having had this experience? It can be before the campaign is launched. It can be during the campaign. It can be when you guys are putting together a report to present to the brand. What are some areas where when you're working with a brand, you can pretty quickly figure out this is a brand that gets it. They're going to be able to have a really strong creator strategy. And the flip side, maybe, hey, they're not, but they're not as well versed. They may not have as much success as other brands that sort of better speak the language.
Yeah, I found that the best brand agency relationships, especially when it comes to influencer marketing, is really a balance between trust and challenge. So we want our clients to trust us. At the end of the day, they're hiring us because we are the experts. So we want them to let us lead when it comes to ideation strategy, creator selection, whitelisting strategy, all of the things. But at the same time, when we have a client that just is a yes man and just approves every single thing, sometimes we don't see the best results because we're kind of we get into like a almost like robotic groove where we're just like checking the boxes because we know they're going to approve every single thing and we're just moving from step to step. So I find that the clients that do challenge us, it definitely leads to more of a rewarding relationship and ultimately better campaign results. So we want clients to also be able to challenge us on certain things because at the end of the day, like as much as we learn their brand, they're the experts on the brand, we're the experts on the influencer strategy. So kind of that like push and pull of like letting us make certain calls, but then they push back because, you know, this might not be right for their exact product or their exact brand. I find that that's when the relationship works the best. And I mentioned Sarah earlier, but she always preaches to me that like when you work with clients that just don't approve everything blindly, you learn so much more and you grow more as, you know, an influencer marketer. So I really have found that those are the best relationships. And I feel like I try to preach that to my team too. Like it's not always the best to just work with like the easy client that just says yes to everything. You kind of want that client that is going to challenge you and help you grow too.
Yeah, I love that sense of balance. One of my favorite stories recently has been a friend of mine works at an agency working with a hydration company. And the hydration company at the beginning of the year said, we're going to give you guys a massive budget. We're going to be completely hands off. You guys build out the influencer strategy however you want. She called me. She's like, this is awesome. I'm like, this is awesome. You guys are going to get to be so creative. This is really cool. They came up with all of these really fun ideas. They took it back to the brand. The brand said, actually, and the brand's whole message when they'd given the budget was, we want to be the fun, different, unique brands. We want a fresh taste. We want a fresh point of view. And then the agency brings hey, here's a lot of really fresh, creative ideas. What do you guys think? And the brand comes back and says, we want to actually prioritize like doctors and the medical fields and make our brands like the most robotic partners. And I think that balance of, and I love how you phrased it, like trust and then sort of that little bit of push and pull. But I totally agree because then when my friend called me the second time, she's like, well, they actually didn't go for any of our ideas, and we tried to push back, and they're like, we're paying you, be quiet, you're going to do exactly what we say. And so finding that balance seems like the best way to, find some level of success rather than purely being the hammer, purely being the nail.
Totally. And I also feel like we're not doing our clients a disservice on the flip side of like if then when they push back, we just say yes to every single thing that they want to
Mhm.
do. I really like to lead with transparency and say like, look, if I were you, I would do it this way. I understand that like you also have a CMO and a CEO that you're reporting to and they're telling you one thing. So I'm cool to do it your way, but I just want to like make it known that this is not what we would recommend. And I think we do that a lot too. And I think our clients appreciate like the radical candor that we have with them. But we also understand too that like our point of contact at the end of the day is not the final decision maker a lot of the time. So we're also pleasing higher ups too on their side. And I think, like you said, it's really just all about the balance.
100%. So what's next for Circle? What are you guys working on right now? Let everyone know. I want to finish up here with sort of what's next and what projects you guys are working on. So please.
Yeah, I think one thing that we're focused on now is really trying to push our clients to test different creator niches outside of their typical creators that we tend to work with. The pool of influencers is obviously getting larger and larger, and interest based media is continuing to grow, especially within like niche interests. And we really want to have our clients tap into that. And a lot of our clients are focused on reaching their target audience through an influencer that looks exactly like their target audience. So, for example, if they're trying to go after the millennial mom who shops for better for you snacks for her kids, they only want to work with millennial moms who shop for better for you snacks with their kids.
Mhm.
But that millennial mom is into fashion, into beauty, into homemaking, into reading and book talk and needle pointing and all these other things that are trending, and there's creators that sit within all those categories too. And I'm really trying to push my clients to think a little bit outside of the box and in reach people through creators that might not look exactly like them, if that makes sense.
It totally does. Is there an example that you've worked on recently of trying to implement that sort of strategy?
Yeah, I mean, we've also been testing a lot of what we call like alternative content creators. So those are like the artists, the bedazzlers, nail artists, make it mini, cookie decorators. We just did a really cool partnership for our client Harvest Snaps where we worked with a fashion designer and she made a gown out of the Harvest Snaps packaging, and we had the content go live around the Met Gala. So that was like again a super fun way to kind of show up differently on social, reach our audience outside of again that millennial mom influencer, and also tap into like a cultural moment of the Met Gala too. So things like that are what we're really focusing on now and trying to push our clients to be different and to create content that's going to stop people from scrolling too.
Yeah, I always, every time I'm talking to friends in the business, they give me so much great advice or make me think, you really are making me think that I should be a cookie decorator creator. Like, why am I working on the agent side when I could be a bedazzler of cookies and then
I
make
every
harvest
day
snacks?
I have the thought of why am I on this side and not an influencer when I see what influencers are getting from these deals. But yeah, it's really crazy how I feel like now just in 2026 too, especially there's just 10 billion different opportunities to be a creator in so many different spaces. And it's cool to see all these different types of creators come up.
Oh, 1,000,000%. I have many of friends in the business where we'll text back and forth, and creators will get paid more deals than the vast majority of people's
Yes.
salaries.
Yes.
And it's like that. Why are we on this side again? But we love it, and you're doing an amazing job. And Circle is
Thank
such
you.
a cool agency, and it's really been awesome to follow your growth from afar. And yeah, just it'll be really cool to continue to see all the incredible work that you and your team are doing, and bring you back on the pod to chat about it.
Yeah, I'd love to come back.
Amazing. Okay, so let's finish up with some rapid fire here. As a reminder, we say this before every segment. Rapid meaning rapid, no right answer. First thing that comes to mind. So let's go. Rapid fire. Favorite personal social media platform.
TikTok.
Love it. Biggest green flag when vetting a new influencer.
They don't have their likes turned off and they respond to people in their comments.
Okay. Dream vacation destination.
Japan.
Favorite part about going to school at Wisconsin-Madison.
The few weeks in the spring and fall when the weather is actually nice and the entire student body is outside and on the lake.
Um, yeah, for a few weeks. For a few weeks, that
Exactly.
sounds magical. Favorite restaurant in New York.
The Polo Bar.
Okay. Best piece of advice you got early in your career that still holds up.
This came from my mom, who is my number one career role model and mentor. And she told me that you are never too senior for any task.
That's really good advice. Last but not least, you just got married. Congratulations to
Thank
you.
you.
Favorite wedding gift, favorite moment from the wedding. Just what are one of the moments for someone that is not married, in my case, that you will just remember, flashbulb moment you'll remember forever.
Yeah, my husband and I did a mini moon right after our wedding. We went to Healdsburg in California in the wine country, and we had the best 5 days just reminiscing on the wedding and spending quality time together. So that was great. And favorite wedding gift had to be from my brother, who got us an awesome omakase experience, which I would recommend to anyone as a great wedding gift that was different from anything else we got.
Amazing. Marley, you're the absolute best. I think you mentioned this was your first podcast appearance ever. You wouldn't know it. You are an
First podcast.
absolute pro.
Thank
Where
you.
can everyone follow you or Circle Media or plug any places where people can follow along with all the incredible work you and your team do?
Yeah, follow Circle Media on Instagram. Follow Adam Brown on LinkedIn. He's our president. He posts a ton of great content and advice for brands, creators. Connect with me on LinkedIn, Marlie Fisher Karr. And yeah,
Awesome. Marley, thank you so much for the time. Really enjoyed it and hope you have a great day. Nice meeting you.
awesome. Thank you.
Thanks.